Hello, I'm recording this video to show you exactly how to use the Excel expense tracker. If you use this tracker correctly, it should help you to build a tax-based profit and loss statement. And the statement should help you to know exactly what your net profit is. And with this information, you'll know exactly what you'll be taxed on. And you'll be able to strategize around that and control how much you pay in taxes if you fill this out and act on it before the end of the tax year. If this is completed correctly, you'll have all of your numbers that you need for your business in one place, which will save you a lot of time and energy when it comes time to file your taxes. Now, the basic layout of this is going to involve you to do two main things. One thing you want to do is to list out all of your income and expenses for each month. The other thing you'll want to do is to break down that income and those expenses into categories. So each month, you're going to list out the totals of all of your business income and expenses into the categories that are listed on the tracker. The expenses, which will be in the dark brown boxes, will correlate very closely to what is on the Schedule C. And if you're able to categorize all of your expenses based on these categories, it's going to make filing your taxes much simpler. Okay? So if you go down to the very bottom of the Excel tracker, you'll see there's a line item that gives you your total expenses, your total income, and your total net profit. We will have to scroll to the far left to see what the total net profit is. And that number is going to be reflected in the bottom box. There are a few categories in here that will require a little extra info, and I will spend time on those once we get to those sections. For example, I'll go into a bit more detail on the home office deduction. I'll go into more detail on how to claim automobile expenses. And I'll go into more detail about how to properly list your meals. But the main thing that I want you to know about these categories is that no two people are going to categorize all of their expenses the same. The things that you should be aware of is that, one, that the expenses that you list are business expenses because they're deductible even if you misclassify them. The second thing to keep in mind is that when you do classify your expenses, try to make them make as much sense as possible. If you can't categorize them anywhere, you want to put them simply as an other expense. But the third thing I want you to really know is that when you do categorize your expenses, try to be consistent in the way that you do it. For example, if you have pens in your business, you could list them as a supply on this line item, or you can list it as an office expense. Neither is right or wrong, but however you choose to classify an expense, make sure you do so consistently. So now we will go back to the top and work our way down. For rows 4 and 5, you just simply change this out and put your business name. For row 5, put down the tax year that this is for. On the income section, all of your income will be recorded in these few rows that are highlighted now. And you can categorize your income as simple or as complicated as you want. So if you only have one profit center in your business and you only do sales, it is perfectly okay to only list your total revenue for each month as sales. But if you have multiple profit centers and you want to track which revenue source in your business is bringing in what amount of money, then you can break those down into whatever detail you'd like. Just know that the more detail that you give these, the more tedious the tracking method will be for you. And that is not a bad thing. I just want you to be warned. But the big thing is that for each month, your total revenue ends up matching everything that came in on the bottom line. Okay. So with income, you can make it as simple or as detailed as you want, as long as the total for each month ends up correctly on the total line. The rest of this form is dedicated to categorizing your expenses. The first expense that we will go over will be inventory. So if you sell products for your business, just simply list down the total amount that you spent on purchasing your inventory. The next section will be advertising. Any expense that you have that may be considered advertising, simply list down the totals. You can, if you only have one or two sources of marketing expenses, then just use two and leave the rest blank. But anything that's advertising will go in this block. For commission and fees, anything that you would consider a commission or a fee should be listed here. Just to reiterate, those terms are kind of broad. No two people will do these the same. But what I personally list in these areas are any bank fees if I have them. I use merchant processing like Stripe and PayPal, and they will take a fee when they deposit money into your account. The fees that they take, I will put here. And also, if I had someone that I was paying commissions or any referral fees that were paid, I would also list those here as well. But anything that makes sense for you in terms of commissions and fees, you can list here as an expense. But contract labor. Contract labor is an important line item to track because if you pay an independent contractor more than $600 in a year, then you need to pay them, you need to issue them a 1099 for the next tax season. For insurances, any business-related insurances that you have will be totaled here. So if you have business or general liability insurance, if you have malpractice insurance, or if you bought insurance to cover a rental car that you use for business, you could put those things here. One quick note about insurances is when it comes to self-employment health insurance, you want to track those numbers, but you do not want to put them on the profit and loss statement or in this Excel tracker. Those expenses are sometimes deductible, and if they are deducted on another part of the return, and it doesn't reduce your business net profit. So if you have self-employment health insurance, do not list it here, but definitely track it so that you can include it on the proper place on your tax return. For interest, any business-related interest will go here. So if you have a business credit card where you make business purchases, or if you have a business loan, or if you own the building that your business operates in, not your primary residence, but an actual outside location that your business owns, that mortgage interest will be deductible. One key thing I want you to keep in mind about credit cards is that if that credit card has business and personal expenses on it, then you will want to prorate the amount of deductible business interest based on, the amount of business transactions versus personal transactions. The next section for legal and professional services, anything that you feel would fit into this category should go here. Legal is pretty self-explanatory. Like if you have attorney fees or any kind of legal issues, you want to list those here. But professional services can be kind of broad, and sometimes that can blend into contract labor. So just make sure that you classify these in a way that makes sense for you. But if you do have someone that provided professional services and you pay them over $600, you may want to consider classifying them as contract labor versus professional services. Office expenses is pretty broad in terms of what you can list here. And so, as I said earlier, as long as you are consistent with how you classify your expenses, anything that you would consider an office expense, you can list here. For rent or lease, you want to total up anything that you rented or leased. Pretty self-explanatory, correct? Now, this is going to be for business purposes and not for your primary resident. If you rent your home and have a home office, there's a separate section for that. You will not list your home rent here. If you rented any equipment for your business, you'll want to list this here as well. Supplies. If you ordered certain supplies for your business, you can list it here. Once again, this category is kind of broad, but as long as you're consistent with how you classify your expenses, and if it's a business expense, you should be good to go. Taxes and licenses. For this category, if you have any taxes that you've paid on your business, such as real estate tax if you own the building, or if you have employees and you pay employment taxes, those will be deductible. Also, if you have licenses for your business, for example, if you are a realtor or an insurance salesman and you have to get a license each year, you put this here. Another thing I put in this area is if someone applies for an LLC or pay for their LLC renewal, I tend to put this in this category as well. For meals, you want to put all business related meals here. And just to give a little clarification, what the IRS considers a deductible meal is if you are in your home city and you are taking out a client or a prospect to try to further your business, you will want to keep that receipt, write down their name, write down the purpose of the meal, and if possible, the result of that meal. And you want to keep that receipt. And that is what a 50% deductible meal looks like if you're home. Now, if you're traveling away for business, then the meals you eat then, even if you were alone, will be 50% deductible. So you still want to keep the receipt, but just know that when you travel away for business and you're eating alone, then that will be 50% deductible. But if you're in your home city, you need to be treating a business colleague, and you want to write down their name, write down the reason for the nature of the meeting and the result. And also you want an itemized receipt as well. So a lot of record keeping requirements go with the meal deduction. There are some scenarios where you can get 100% for meals, and the primary situation would be if you was hosting an event and you catered, or if you had all of your employees in the office and you bought food or had food brought in mainly so that for the convenience of your employees, those are 100% deductible meals. But for the most part, you want to put your 50% meals in this box. If you have any 100% deductible meal situations, I would suggest you simply go down to the bottom and list them in the other category. For travel, business-related travel is definitely tax deductible. In fact, it's one of my favorite deductions, but it must be for business purposes. One key tip is to try to have an appointment scheduled in advance of the travel and keep that in your records for audit purposes. But when you travel, your airfare, your lodging, your rentals, almost everything that's connected with your business travel is deductible. Earlier, I said the meals are 50% deductible, even if you are dining solo. So do not put travel meals here. Put that in the category above. But anything related to travel, you want to put here. The next category we're going to review is going to be automobile expenses. Now, there are two ways to deduct automobile expenses. One is the standard mileage method, and the other is the actual expense method. I'm going to primarily talk about the standard mileage method, and I am partial to this particular method. One, because it has the easiest record keeping requirement. And the other thing is that I typically find that it gives the bigger deduction between the two in a lot of cases. Not in every case, but in most cases. With the standard mileage method, the key thing that you want to track is the number of business miles that you drove each year. And on the Excel sheet, you're going to enter those on row 125. Just simply enter in your mileage. This won't be a dollar amount, but a number of mileage that you drove. And for tax year 2018, we get 58 cents per mile. So if you are doing this for a different tax year, figure out the standard deduction mileage rate for that year and put it here in this box. But each month you want to enter in the amount of business miles that you drove. And in the end, it would do the calculation for you. The other method is the actual expense method. And you'll want to use this method if you have a fleet of vehicles, or if you have a vehicle that is used 100% for business and is customized for your business, like certain work trucks or truckers who buy their own trucks or rigs. You'll want to list this here. Another key thing I want you to know about the actual expense method is, if in your first year of business, if you use this method, you cannot switch back and forth between the two methods. But if you start the first year using the standard mileage method, then you can choose whichever method gives you the bigger benefit. So if you use this method, just know that you'll need to track the amount of miles you drove for the year along with your business mileage for the year. You'll want to divide those two numbers and get the percentage of business use. And then all of these other expenses, such as car note interest, lease payments, what you paid in gas, what you paid for maintenance, all those things will be deductible in proportion to the percentage of business use of your vehicle. You can also depreciate your vehicle as well, but that is a bit advanced for this course. So I would recommend, if you're using that method, to one, have some really good record keeping, and two, consider consulting or hiring an advisor or an accountant to help. The next section is trainings and conferences. Now, you will not see this line item on the Schedule C, but so many of the people that I service have these expenses to where I thought it would be a good idea to list them separately. So anything that you have that's considered a training or a conference, you can list here. But if it's travel, you may want to list it in the travel area. But either way, as long as it's deductible, as long as it makes it on here and you list it consistently the right way or the same way, you should be good to go. The home office. I love this deduction because these are typically expenses that you will have anyway, but now that you run your business from your home, we get to deduct a portion of our housing expenses. So the first thing you'll want to know is the square footage of your office and the square footage of your home. And so for your office, what you want to do is go into the room or the area where you have your home office, and you want to measure two adjoining walls in feet and multiply the two. For example, if I have one wall that is 10 feet long and another wall that is 12 feet long, then 10 times 12 is 120. That office is 120 square feet. Next, you'll want to get the square footage of the entire home. When you get that, you will divide the two, and that is the percentage in which you can deduct all of the expenses and more that are listed here. For example, if you rent, you'll get to write off a percentage of your rent. If you have a mortgage, then the mortgage interest will be partially deductible. Keep in mind, if you have a mortgage and you also itemize, some of those expenses may have to flow to a different schedule. But that's a more advanced topic, and I would talk to a tax pro if that is your case. But for the rest of your utilities, it's enter your gas, your power, water, phone, any other home-related expense that you have. You will want to list in this area by month. Also, when it comes to repairs, especially repairs that affect the entire home, you want to list those as well, especially if they're big repairs like you had your roof replaced or fixed, or if your AC unit broke down and needed to be repaired. You can also get a part of that deducted as well. One expense I want you to be particularly watchful for are going to be expenses that are done directly to the home office. For example, if you had your home office painted and had a library shelf put up in there for your business books. Those expenses would be 100% deductible. They're called direct expenses. I'll give you another example. A couple of years ago, I had my tech guy to come to my home office and hardwire an Ethernet connection so I wouldn't have to rely on Wi-Fi in my home office. That repair was 100% deductible because it was done directly to the home office. Direct expenses, I would like for you to put under the other category because you want to get a 100% deduction for those. And the last category is the others category, which are going to be things that you had a hard time classifying. For the most part, the majority of your expenses should be classified in one of the other areas above this area. But for those things that you want to stand out or just don't quite fit the molds that are listed above, you want to simply just say what it is. You can change these into whatever you want to and list down the monthly totals of them. And now that we're at the bottom, you will get your total expenses for each month. You'll get your total income for each month and your total net profit for each month. These will help you a lot as you fill out this form throughout the year. But if we go to the far right, now you have either your year to date or your total net profit for the year in this bucket. This would be your total gross income, and this would be your total expenses for the year. Another thing I want to show you is the summary tab. There is nothing to input on this tab. This tab simply reports the things that were entered on the other tab, on the monthly tracking sheet tab. This is what you would use to prepare your own Schedule C if you're doing it yourself, or you would give this to your accountant or to your tax pro. And if you give this to your tax pro, this will save them so much time and energy when it comes to completing your tax return, which should cause them to give you a decreased rate. Personally, my firm gives a decreased rate to any person who has a solid profit and loss statement or a really solid and easy to understand summary of their income and expenses. And this is what this tab will do for you. The last tab that I want to review is going to be the business expense list. Nothing on this tab flows to or from anything on the other tabs. I put this tab here as a worksheet that I use with some of my coaching and consulting clients to help them to sort out their expenses. And so this is more like a reference or a check sheet for you so that as you're filling this out throughout the year, you know exactly how some of your key expenses are to be categorized. So this is only a reference. You can do it this what you want, but this is just basically a notepad for categorizing for you. I want to thank you for watching the video, and I hope that you got a lot of value from it. It will greatly assist you in getting your numbers together for tax season. I do want to remind you that the video basically gives you the bare bones basics of what you need to know to get your numbers together. There's a lot of accounting and tax detail that is not included, or else this video would be hours long. And so with that being said, the video in the template is not meant to replace a professional accountant or a tax person, but to just mainly assist you. So if you have any questions, or if you're confused, or if you have complicated tax issues, you definitely want to reach out to someone. Now, if you want more information in general about the Excel template, I do have a course. And in the course, which is currently in beta mode, it will go over everything I talked about in much greater detail. In the course, you will have a bunch of short videos that will be divided by topic, and we'll get into much deeper tax and accounting detail. There's a separate video for the home office deduction, a separate one for meals. There's a couple of videos that goes over vehicle expenses. There's also one that goes over independent contractors, and it'll give you the forms that you'll need to have your people fill out, like the W-9. I also provide links in the course so where if you want deeper knowledge, you can go and get that as well. And basically it ties everything up and shows you exactly how to use this information and transfer it over onto your tax return. I want to invite you to join the beta course while it is still in beta. It is currently going for $20 a month, and the price will increase come the new year. And so if this is of interest to you, simply send me an email and I will get you into the course. Until then, if you have any questions, I am always here to help.